Track import from projects or track archives. You can import tracks from other Nuendo or Cubase projects or track archives. This allows you, for example, to import premixed tracks or stems to your active project or to reuse the mix settings of a previous project for a new song. For each individual track, you can decide whether to create a new track in your active project or to replace data on an existing track. If you use identical track names in both the imported and the active project, you can automatically select matching tracks as the import destination. You can choose to import the track events or the track settings only to include or to exclude automation data or to import all track data. Note: the track settings for read/write automation status, record enable, monitor, muting/soloing, and visibility are not imported. When importing multiple tracks that are related to each other via sends, output routing, quick link, or VCA fader within the source project, these relations are retained in your active project. Note: if your active project contains routing targets with names that are identical to names in the source project, imported tracks are connected accordingly. Depending on the track type, the following import rules apply: audio, instrument, MIDI, and sampler tracks. If you select new track as the destination, a new track is created in the active project. This track contains all imported track data, including track versions. If you select an existing track as the destination, the imported track data is applied to this track. If you import events or parts to an existing audio, instrument, MIDI, or sampler track, existing track versions in the active project are kept, track versions of the source project are added, and a new track version is created. VCA, group, and effect tracks. If you select new track as the destination, a new track is created in the active project. If you select an existing VCA, group, and effect track as the destination, this track is replaced by the imported track. Folder tracks. If you select new track as the destination, a new track is created in the active project. If you import a folder track to an existing track, the content of this track is entirely replaced by the tracks of the imported folder track. Marker tracks. If you select new track as the destination, a new marker track is created. If your project already contains 10 marker tracks, you cannot import marker tracks from another project. In this case, you must remove an existing marker track first. Note: Nuendo projects can contain more than 10 marker tracks. If you import marker tracks from these projects to Cubase, only the first 10 selected marker tracks in the Import Options dialog are imported into your project. If you select an existing marker track as the destination, the imported track data replaces the existing track data. Chord, signature, and tempo tracks. If you import chord, signature, or tempo tracks, existing track versions in the active project are kept, track versions of the source project are added, and a new track version is created. Note: if you select a signature track for import, the import at cursor position is not available in the Import Options dialog. Video tracks. If you select new track as the destination, a new video track is created. If your project already contains 2 video tracks, you cannot import a video track from another project. In this case, you must remove an existing video track first. If you select an existing video track as the destination, the imported track data replaces the existing track data. Related links. Importing tracks from projects. Importing tracks from track archives. Import Options dialog for tracks. Adding tracks by dragging files from the media bay. Importing tracks from projects. Importing tracks from projects. You can import tracks from other Nuendo or Cubase projects. Procedure. Select File, Import Tracks from Project. In the File Explorer/macOS Finder, select the project file that contains the tracks that you want to import and click Open. In the Import Options dialog, select the tracks that you want to import and make any further settings. Click OK. Result: the tracks are imported into your active project. Related links. Track import from projects or track archives. Import Options dialog for tracks. Track versions. Track import from projects or track archives. Importing tracks from track archives. Importing tracks from track archives. You can import tracks from track archives. Prerequisite: you have created at least one track archive by exporting selected tracks from a project. Procedure: select File, Import Track Archive. In the File Explorer/macOS Finder, select the .xml file of the track archive and click Open. In the Import Options dialog, select the tracks that you want to import and make any further settings. Click OK. Result: the tracks are imported into the active project. Related links. Track import from projects or track archives. Import Options dialog for tracks. Track versions. Importing tracks from projects. Import Options dialog for tracks. Import Options dialog for tracks. The Import Options dialog allows you to activate tracks for import, to specify the destination in the active project and the track data that is to be imported, and to set up further import options. To open the Import Options dialog, select File, Import Track Archive, or File, Import Tracks from Project, and open the project file from which you want to import tracks. Tracks. Select All. Selects all tracks. Deselect all. Deselects all tracks. Expand all. Expands the track list. Collapse all. Collapses the track list. Select Matching. Sets tracks with identical names as the corresponding destination for all selected tracks in the track list. Reset. Sets new track as destination for all selected tracks in the track list. Search field. Allows you to filter the track list. Clear search resets the filter. Track list. Shows the tracks that are selected in the project. The source track column allows you to select the tracks that you want to import into your project. The destination track column allows you to choose a destination for the corresponding track. Track data to be imported. Events and parts. Imports only events and parts. Note: if the imported track contains track versions, these are also imported. If events or parts are imported to an existing track, a new track version is created. Channel and inspector settings. Imports all track settings, for example, volume, panning, EQ, channel strip and inspector settings, output routing, sends, cues, VCA connections, and plugins. Note: the track settings for read/write automation status, record enable, monitor, muting/soloing, and visibility are not imported from other projects. Automation. Imports all automation data that is related to the imported track data. Note: if this option is deactivated when importing events or settings to an existing track, its automation data is reset. Project settings. Source project/active project. Shows the file name, the sample rate, the frame rate, and the project start time for both the imported tracks and your active project. Note: imported tracks may contain media files with a sample rate that differs from the sample rate of your destination project. Files with a sample rate different from the one of the destination project play back at the wrong speed and pitch. Import position for events and parts. Import at absolute position. Places imported track data at its original timecode position in your active project. Import at relative position. Places imported track data relative to the start time of your active project, taking the start time of the source project into account. For example, if the source project starts at timecode 01:00:00:00 with an event located at 02:00:00:00, and if the active project starts at 02:00:00:00, the imported event is placed at timecode 03:00:00:00. Import at cursor position. Places imported track data relative to the cursor position in your active project, taking the start time of the source project into account. For example, if the source project starts at timecode 01:00:00:00 with an event located at 02:00:00:00, and if the cursor in your active project is located at 02:00:00:00, the imported event is placed at timecode 03:00:00:00. Note: if the start time of your active project is later than the position of imported track data in the source project, the imported data is not visible in the active project after import. In this case, adjust the start time of the active project accordingly. If the end time your active project is earlier than the end time of the imported track data, the end time of your project is modified accordingly. If you have selected a signature track for import, import at cursor position is not available. Media files. Copy to active project folder. Copies the media files of the imported tracks to your active project folder. If this option is deactivated, the media file path of the original project is referenced. Convert sample rate. Converts the sample rate of the imported tracks to the sample rate of your active project. Note: this option is available only if the sample rates of the imported tracks and of your active project differ and if copy to active project folder is activated. Related links. Track import from projects or track archives. Track versions. Importing tracks from track archives. Track export. Track export. You can export selected tracks as track archives. This is useful if you want to use specific tracks in other projects, for example. Track archives contain information that is associated with the tracks such as channel settings, parts and events, and automation. Note: project-specific settings such as the tempo are not exported to track archives. Track archives are saved as .xml files. When exporting audio and video tracks, you can either reference the media files or copy them to a separate folder. Related links. Track presets. Exporting audio or video tracks as track archives. Import options dialog for tracks. Exporting tracks as track archives. Exporting tracks as track archives. You can export selected tracks as track archives. Procedure. Select the tracks you want to export. Select File, Export selected tracks. In the File dialog that opens, select or create a folder for saving the track archive as a single .xml file. Enter a file name and click Save. Related links. Exporting audio or video tracks as track archives. Track export. Exporting audio or video tracks as track archives. Exporting audio or video tracks as track archives. You can export audio or video tracks as track archives. Procedure. Select the audio or video tracks and any other tracks that you want to export. Select File, Export selected tracks. In the File dialog that opens, choose between the following options. Click Copy to include copies of the media files in the export. In the File dialog that opens, select an empty folder or create a new folder for saving the track archive as an .xml file and its media subfolder. Click OK to save the track archive. Click Reference to include a reference to the files in the export. In the File dialog that opens, select or create a folder for saving the track archive as a single .xml file. Enter a name for the track archive and click Save. Exporting tracks as track archives. Exporting MIDI tracks as standard MIDI files. Exporting MIDI tracks as standard MIDI files. You can export MIDI tracks as standard MIDI files. This allows you to transfer MIDI material to virtually any MIDI application on any platform. Procedure. Select File, Export MIDI file. In the File dialog that opens, specify a location and name for the file. Click Save. In the Export Options dialog, activate the settings that you want to export and click OK. Result. The MIDI file is exported. It includes the tempo and the time signature events of the tempo track editor, or if the tempo track is deactivated on the transport panel, the current tempo and time signature. Note: if you want to include inspector settings that differ from those specified in the export options, use Merge MIDI in Loop to convert these settings to real MIDI events. Related links. Export Options dialog for MIDI files. Merging MIDI events into a new part. Exporting audio or video tracks as track archives. Export Options dialog for MIDI files. Export Options dialog for MIDI files. The export options for MIDI files allow you to specify what data to include in the exported MIDI files. To open the export options for MIDI files, select File, Export MIDI File. Export Inspector Patch. Includes MIDI patch settings in the inspector as MIDI bank select and program change events in the MIDI file. Export Inspector Volume/Pan. Includes volume and pan settings in the inspector as MIDI volume and pan events in the MIDI file. Export Automation. Includes automation as MIDI controller events in the MIDI file. This also includes automation recorded with the MIDI control plugin. If you record a continuous controller, CC7, for example, and deactivate Red Automation for the automation track, only the part data for this controller is exported. Export Inserts. Includes MIDI modifiers and MIDI inserts in the MIDI file. Export Sends. Includes MIDI sends in the MIDI file. Export Markers. Includes markers as standard MIDI file marker events in the MIDI file. Export as Type 0. Exports a Type 0 MIDI file with all data on a single track but on different MIDI channels. If you deactivate this option, a Type 1 MIDI file with data on separate tracks is exported. Export Resolution. Allows you to set a MIDI resolution between 24 and 960 for the MIDI file. The resolution is the number of pulses or ticks per quarter note (PPQ) and determines the precision with which you will be able to view and edit the MIDI data. The higher the resolution, the higher the precision. Choose the resolution based on the application or sequencer to be used, because certain applications and sequencers may not be able to handle certain resolutions. Export Locator Range. Exports only the range between the left and the right locator. Export includes delay. Includes delay settings you have made in the MIDI file via the inspector. Related links. Automation. Markers. MIDI track parameters. Merging MIDI events into a new part. Export options. Exporting MIDI parts as MIDI files. Exporting MIDI tracks as standard MIDI files. Splitting multi-channel audio tracks. Splitting multi-channel audio tracks. You can split multi-channel tracks such as stereo or surround into several mono tracks. This is useful if you want to use the tracks in an application that only supports mono tracks, or if you want to edit individual channels of a multi-channel file. Procedure. In the project window, select the track that you want to split. Select Project, Convert Tracks, Multi-Channel to Mono. In the Split Multi-Channel to Mono dialog, make your changes and click OK. Result. The resulting number of mono tracks corresponds to the channel configuration of the source track. All channel settings of the source tracks are copied to the tracks created by the split operation. The multi-channel audio material of the source track is split into mono events, which are inserted on the new tracks. In the audio folder of the project, a subfolder called Split is created, which contains the new mono files. Note: if you split a stereo track, the resulting mono tracks are panned hard left and hard right using the standard stereo panner. If you split a multi-channel track and this track is routed to an output bus, a group channel, or an FX channel with corresponding child buses, all resulting mono tracks are routed to their assigned channels. Otherwise, the resulting mono tracks are panned to center. If the channel configurations of the source track and the source file do not match because the multi-channel source track contains a mono file, for example, this mono file is copied onto the first two destination tracks. However, as panning information is not considered during the split, the volume of the new mono file may not match that of the file on the original track. Export Options dialog for MIDI files. Split multi-channel to mono dialog. Split multi-channel to mono dialog. The Split multi-channel to mono dialog allows you to specify how to convert multi-channel tracks to mono tracks. To open the Split multi-channel to mono dialog, select Project, Convert Tracks, Multi-channel to mono. Source Tracks. Allows you to choose whether you want to split all multi-channel tracks or only the selected ones. Options. Allows you to specify what happens when you split the multi-channel file. Keep source tracks. Inserts new tracks below the source tracks. Mute source tracks. Inserts new tracks below the source tracks and mutes the source tracks. Delete source tracks. Inserts new tracks and deletes the source tracks. Create new project. Creates a new project containing only the resulting tracks. Split file name format. This pop-up menu allows you to specify how the split tracks and files are named. Splitting multi-channel audio tracks. Merging mono audio tracks to multi-channel tracks. Merging mono audio tracks to multi-channel tracks. Converting mono tracks to multi-channel tracks makes editing and mixing more convenient. Prerequisite. Your project contains tracks with audio events that are not in musical mode. The tracks fit evenly into a number of multi-channel files of the destination format. The tracks reside on the same level in the track list, that is, either on the top level or within the same folder track. The tracks match in terms of channel settings and automation. If the settings differ, the settings of the topmost track of each group are used. If the separate audio events have different volume envelopes, these are calculated into the new clip. The level of the source events should not exceed 0 dB. Otherwise, clipping can occur in the created files. The only exception to this are files in 32-bit float format. Procedure. Optional, select the tracks that you want to convert in the project window. Select Project, Convert Tracks, Mono to Multi-Channel. In the Merge Mono to Multi-Channel dialog, make your changes and click OK. Result. The resulting number of multi-channel tracks corresponds to the channel configuration of the source track. The names of the multi-channel tracks derive from the mono source tracks. Note. The following naming rules apply. If the track names of the source tracks end with a suffix separated by a space or a special character that indicates the corresponding speaker channel, for example, _L or EL for the left channel, this suffix is removed for the multi-channel track name. If the track names of the source tracks do not end with a channel suffix, the channel configuration of the multi-channel track is added to its name. Events that have the same timeline position are converted into a multi-channel event on the new track. If the lengths of the source events do not match exactly, the overlap is included in the new events. In the audio folder of the project, a subfolder called Merge is created, which contains the new multi-channel files. Note. If the outputs of the mono tracks are routed to separate channels within one output bus, this bus is selected as output for the multi-channel track. Related links. Merge mono to multi-channel dialog. Export audio mixdown. Split multi-channel to mono dialog. Merge mono to multi-channel dialog. Merge mono to multi-channel dialog. The Merge mono to multi-channel dialog allows you to specify how to convert mono tracks to multi-channel tracks. To open the Merge mono to multi-channel dialog, select Project, Convert Tracks, Mono to Multi-Channel. Source Tracks. Allows you to choose whether you want to merge all mono tracks or only the selected ones. Options. Allows you to specify what happens when the mono files are merged. Keep source tracks. Inserts new tracks below the source tracks. Mute source tracks. Inserts new tracks below the source tracks and mutes the source tracks. Delete source tracks. Inserts new tracks and deletes the source tracks. Create new project. Creates a new project containing only the resulting tracks. Destination format. Allows you to select the format for the multi-channel file. Note. The number of selected tracks must match this format. The tracks are combined according to their order in the track list. Merging mono audio tracks to multi-channel tracks. Removing selected tracks. Removing selected tracks. You can remove selected tracks from the track list. Procedure. Select project, remove selected tracks. If you delete tracks that are not empty, a warning message is displayed. Note. You can deactivate this message. To reactivate the message, activate display warning before deleting non-empty tracks in the Preferences dialog editing page. Merge mono to multi-channel dialog. Removing empty tracks. Removing empty tracks. You can remove empty tracks from the track list. Procedure. Select project, remove empty tracks. Removing selected tracks. Moving tracks in the track list. Removing empty tracks. You can remove empty tracks from the track list. Procedure. Select project, remove empty tracks. Removing selected tracks. Moving tracks in the track list. Moving tracks in the track list. You can move tracks up or down in the track list. Procedure. Select a track and drag it up or down in the track list. Removing empty tracks. Renaming tracks. Renaming tracks. You can rename tracks. Procedure. Double-click the track name and type in a new name for the track. Press return. If you want to assign the same name to all events on the track, hold down any modifier key and press return. After completing this task, if the Parts Get Track Names option is activated in the Preferences dialog editing page and you move an event from one track to another, the moved event will automatically be named according to its new track. Moving tracks in the track list. Automatically assigning colors to new tracks/channels.